Welcome to ChiSports Legends. Today, the greatest Bears running backs not named Payton. Let's get into it.
Before 1966, the Bears' backfield was defined by pioneers like Red Grange, Bronco Nagurski, and George McAfee, players who helped build both the franchise and the league itself. But from the late 1960s onward, Chicago continued producing giants of the game, creating a lineage of running backs that carried the franchise through eras of dominance, rebuilding, heartbreak, and triumph. When the Bears drafted Anthony Thomas out of Michigan, they struck gold right away. Thomas burst onto the scene in 2001, rushing for 1,183 yards and earning NFL Rookie of the Year's honors. His blend of size, power, and surprising quickness turned him into a centerpiece of Chicago's offense early in his career. Over 4 seasons with the Bears, Thomas amassed 3,332 rushing yards and 21 touchdowns, good for 8th on the franchise's all-time rushing list. Though he never fully recaptured his rookie year dominance and later moved on to several other teams, his early years in Chicago left a strong enough impression to keep him firmly etched into Bears history. Jordan Howard's time in Chicago was short, but incredibly productive. Drafted in 2016, Howard exploded onto the scene with 1,313 rushing yards as a rookie, earning a Pro Bowl nomination and establishing himself as one of the league's top young backs. He followed that up with another 1,000-yard season in 2017, showcasing a bruising, downhill style that fit perfectly with Chicago's offense at the time. Across 3 seasons, Howard ran for 3,370 yards and 24 touchdowns, ranking 7th in Bears history, a remarkable feat for such a brief Chicago tenure. His productivity dipped slightly in 2018, and the Bears traded him the following offseason, but his early career impact remains undeniable. For 8 seasons, Roland Harper lined up at fullback right beside Walter Payton. The two entered the league together in 1975, and for the duration of Harper's career, they formed one of the toughest backfield tandems in football. Even with Payton commanding most of the attention and most of the carries, Harper carved out an impressive career of his own. He finished with 3,044 rushing yards, placing him comfortably inside the Bears' all-time top 10. Harper was the steady, physical presence that complemented Payton's brilliance and helped Chicago transition into one of the NFL's elite rushing teams of the late 1970s. Matt Suhey wasn't flashy. He wasn't chasing trophies or headlines, but what he was essential. Between 1980 and 1989, Suhey rushed for 2,946 yards. He had 20 rushing TDs, 260 receptions, and 2,113 receiving yards. Drafted in 1980, Suhey took over fullback duties just as the role was beginning to evolve in the NFL. Instead of being just a lead blocker, Suhey became a versatile weapon who could run, catch, protect, and execute every piece of Mike Ditka's offense. For 9 seasons, Suhey shared the backfield with not one, but 2 All-Pro running backs, Walter Payton and later Neal Anderson. And yet, he was one of the last fullbacks of the era who could legitimately carry the ball, finish drives, and keep defense honest. His finest moment came on football's biggest stage, Super Bowl 20. Against the Patriots, Suhey started at fullback and punched in Chicago's first offensive touchdown of the game, finishing with 11 carries for 52 yards and a score. He was a key cog on a championship team and remains one of the most beloved players from the 1985 roster. He never had a 1,000-yard season, but Suhey embodied Chicago. He was tough, dependable, loyal, and always ready. In an era defined by superstars, he was the glue guy that made greatness possible. Thomas Jones is the definition of short stay, massive impact. From 2004 to 2006, Thomas Jones rushed for 3,493 yards, 22 rushing TDs, 118 receptions, and 724 receiving yards. He spent only 3 seasons in Chicago, but in every one of those years, he led the Bears in rushing. Over that stretch, Jones was one of the most productive running backs in the NFC. His ability to run with power, burst outside, and stay on the field made him the perfect fit for Lovie Smith's conservative ball control offense. In the 2006 NFC playoffs, Jones was unstoppable. He had 301 playoff rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, and 2 TDs in the NFC Championship blowout of New Orleans. He was a major reason Chicago reached the Super Bowl, And while Jones spent most of his 10,000-yard NFL career with other teams, his Chicago chapter remains one of his most memorable and one of the most important for the Bears in the 2000s. How do you replace the greatest running back in NFL history? You don't. But Neal Anderson came as close as possible. Between 1986 and 1993, Neal Anderson rushed for 6,166 yards. He had 51 rushing TDs, 302 receptions, 2,763 receiving yards, and 20 receiving TDs. He was a four-time Pro Bowler. When Payton retired after the 1987 season, Anderson took over the job, and Chicago barely missed a beat. From 1988 to 1993, he led the Bears in rushing 7 straight seasons. He became the third leading rusher in team history, and he ranked second in franchise history in rushing touchdowns. Anderson was also a dual threat. With more than 300 receptions and 20 receiving touchdowns, he thrived in the evolving offense of the late 80s and early 90s. He wasn't Payton. Nobody ever will be. But in the post-Sweetness era, Anderson became the superstar Chicago needed and stabilized the offense for nearly a decade. Matt Forte's greatness often flew under the radar, but not in Chicago. From the moment he stepped onto the field in 2008, Forte was the Bears' offensive engine. He was smooth, smart, durable, and incredibly versatile. Between 2008 and 2015, Matt Forte rushed for 8,602 yards. He had 45 rushing TDs, 487 receptions, 4,160 receiving yards, 19 receiving TDs, and went to the Pro Bowl 2 times. He was the second leading rusher in Bears franchise history. He had 1,000-plus rushing yards in 5 seasons, and he led Chicago in rushing every year he played. He had 102 receptions in 2014, one of the greatest receiving seasons ever by a running back. And he had nearly 13,000 total yards from scrimmage as a Bear. Forte never played behind dominant offensive lines. He never had consistent quarterback play. He never had an elite passing system to lighten the load. And yet, he delivered every single year. In the modern NFL, where versatility is king, Forte would be viewed as a superstar. In Chicago, he already is. Gale Sayers' career straddled the beginning of the Super Bowl era, and although injuries shortened his time on the field, his impact remains unmatched. Between 1965 and 1971, Gale Sayers rushed for 4,956 yards. He had 39 rushing TDs, 112 receptions, 1,307 receiving yards, 9 receiving TDs, 8 return TDs, and he was a 4-time Pro Bowler and a 5-time All-Pro Hall of Famer. Sayers wasn't just explosive, he was revolutionary. He averaged an unbelievable 5 yards per carry, dominated as a receiver, and was arguably the greatest return specialist of his generation. His rookie performance in 1965, 6 touchdowns in 1 game, is still one of the most iconic achievements in NFL history. Sayers was a triple threat. He was an elite runner, dangerous receiver, and a devastating returner. Had injuries not ended his career early, Sayers might have rewritten every record in the book. Walter Payton isn't just the greatest Bear of all time. He may be the greatest player in NFL history. Between 1975 and 1987, Walter Payton rushed for 16,726 yards. He had 110 rushing TDs, 492 receptions, and 4,538 receiving yards, along with 8 passing TDs. Walter Payton was a 9-time Pro Bowler, a 5-time All-Pro, a Super Bowl champion, the 1977 NFL MVP, and a Hall of Famer. Payton carried the franchise through the late 70s and early 80s almost single-handedly. He ran with power, grace, violence, patience, and creativity all at once. His stiff arm alone was a weapon. His conditioning was legendary. His versatility made him unstoppable. He did most of it on bad teams behind mediocre offensive lines. By the time the 1985 Bears finally surrounded him with championship talent, Payton was already an all-time great. Winning Super Bowl 20 cemented his legacy forever. He could run, he could catch, he could block, he could pass, he could do everything. Payton retired in 1987 as the NFL's all-time leading rusher. Even today, his legacy stands untouchable. From Sayers to Payton, from Anderson to Jones, from Suhey to Forte, the Chicago Bears had produced running backs who didn't just play the game, they defined eras of it. The Super Bowl era has been shaped by these legends. They carried the franchise through championship seasons, rebuilds, heartbreaks, and unforgettable moments. And through every decade, one truth remained. Chicago doesn't just produce running backs, Chicago produces icons.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. Who is the best running back not named Payton? Share your opinion in the comments. Thanks.